Kahalayimla, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushua, Bahashem HaKodash, and double honors to the great and apostles and the elder bishops of Great Millstone. Thadi Yahushua for the strength and all to make this video. And Yaratazar, you find it edifying and exhorting. To edify meaning to build up. Edify means to build up. Exhort meaning to encourage. So this is just another one of those videos that I watched based on, well, really the water crisis, more so focusing on data centers. Of course, that's one thing. And then Yaratazar, if it be so, I'll play another video on the UK as well. So these are more, I think, more of a niche type of journalism going on here. I don't really know these guys, in terms of the channel. I don't really watch them. I got recommended a video, but I decided, okay, let's make a video on it considering the times that we're in as well. So all of this, it all connects. It all connects. One crisis leading to another, eventually then leading to, he calls it all. Revelation 13, verse 16 to 18, in terms of microchip implant, that mark of the beast. But anyways, let's focus on this. Because really, all of this is just showing Esau is just fulfilling prophecy, man. In fact, before that, I'm going to read this precept. This is John 10 and verse 10. The thief cometh not, but for to steal, and to kill, and to destroy. I am come that they might have life, and that they might have it more abundantly. So, of course, through Yahushua, that's how we're going to be able to live through these times. And ultimately in the kingdom before we can actually live truly. Not in this, in Esau's kingdom, it's pretty much a fight. You're living. You know why I call it a fight as well. I know see many brothers would call it a fight too. It's because of everything that surrounds us. The food we consume, the air that we inhale, of course, even just the vibration of the environment. Be on a level where you gotta fight it. You gotta make sure you charge up your spirit so that you're not hindered by the environment that you may be in. Obviously there's a spirit that the UK has. I think they call it, what do they call it? Grey London, not Grey London. Grey London or gloomy UK, pertaining to sadness because of the grey skies. So yeah, each place has a certain spirit upon them, man. But in general, the Most High's put that spirit of mirth, celebration down the low, like it's decreasing. Ever since 2020, people have been saying, the spirit's just off. Not specifically saying that, but that's what they're referring to. Like, people don't want to interact with each other. Again, that goes into the scripture. Love of many shall wax cold. So of course, it all goes hand in hand with the destruction of Esau's kingdom, man. People are realizing 2010s was pretty much the pinnacle of all that jubilation. That when they brought out the CV19, boom, that's it. Mirth is now decreasing more and more and more. And it's true because, we're entering serious times. Now, let's see this. So Matthew 24 and 12. It says, and because iniquity, that wickedness, sin upon sin, shall abound, that wickedness will be everywhere. And these celebrities basically are like, they help amplify that wickedness as well. That's why they sell their souls for fame, but nevertheless, they're controlled by, the left-hand side, by Satan, in order to push things which will destroy the body. In their music and, subliminals and movies and whatnot, even games too. So again, that's why it's a fight, man. But yeah, it says, and because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. So again, man, people thinking that this so-called dating crisis, or as the movement goes, MGTOW, I think it means men going their own way. All that is really because, again, it's part of the scripture, the love of many shall wax cold. You have that on one hand, and of course you got the Isaiah 4:1 prophecy too, where the women are going to be flocking towards the men of Yahweh Shem Yahshai. So really, in the world, things are looking stale, but in the truth, things are things are moving very positively. You just have to know. You gotta have the perspective first of all through these scriptures, and you gotta have that belief within the scriptures to know that these things are happening. So just because the world's feeling it in one way, don't mean that we're gonna be included in that as well necessarily. Because again, it's all about perspective. That's what I talked about. The love of many waxing cold, but also not just that, but Isaiah 4:1 coming to pass too. But back to this. So John 10:10, the thief cometh not but for to steal, kill, and destroy. He is destroying the land. Of course, with this water consumption for his AI data centers, that's also another crisis that's looming, the water crisis. Over here in the UK, there's that hose pipe ban where certain regions, they limit the amount of water they have access to. It happened in London a few weeks ago as well. Or maybe probably a month. No, actually, no, a few weeks ago. But anyway, so let's get to the video.
There's long been a fight over who gets priority when it comes to water in the American West. The arrival of data centers just made it a lot more complicated.
About 2/3 of new data centers under construction are being built in drought-prone areas.
I would ask the farmers, why do they keep planting more pecan orchards? That is a bigger water user than the data center.
I hope that those people who support the data centers can eat computer chips, because where are they going to get their food from?
Driven by local tax breaks and an industry-wide space race to build, these companies promise they won't add to the water burden.
Daily water usage over the course of an entire year is roughly equivalent to what a single restaurant would use.
But is that really true?
The water that's used inside the data center itself is only the tip of the iceberg.
We've all noticed our wells have pretty much dried up.
Everything has been so secretive, they just don't know. No one knows.
There will be no future without water. What don't you understand?
We came to El Paso, Texas, in southern New Mexico, where Meta, Oracle, and OpenAI are building massive data centers to ask the question, how much water does the AI boom actually need?
Our goal is to get about 2,000 pounds per acre, about 50 to 60 pecans per tree.
Roberto Roque is a third-generation pecan farmer in southern New Mexico. Like many farmers in the Southwest, he's seen...
There's a lot of Latin tribe in that area as well. I think they're going to mention Texas. So Jake be the ones working that land.
His water supply dry up from years of drought.
And the water's just going to flood this field.
Yeah, just going to go ahead and flood the whole field. It's very difficult because instead of relying on the water that comes from the Rocky Mountains, we've had to invest into agricultural wells, and that becomes very expensive.
It's also becoming more complicated because there's a new water-hungry industry in town, data centers.
If they consume the amount of water that people are saying that they're going to consume, then what are we going to eat? Because agriculture is going to cease to exist.
Roberto lives just a few miles from Project Jupiter, a 1,400-acre data center campus being built by OpenAI and Oracle. The companies say it will only require a one-time fill of some 11 million gallons to start up and cool 4 buildings.
They like to tell us that it's going to be a minimal percentage as compared to what a farmer uses, but who meters their water? How are we going to know? They're not telling the community the truth. They're not being transparent.
Around the country, residents and researchers have been pushing for more transparency around data centers' actual water use by filing public records requests. But what they're getting back is vague or redacted, like this water deal in Stafford County, Virginia, for an Amazon data center. In my home state of Oregon, Google's data center water use numbers were considered a trade secret. After a 13-month legal battle, documents revealed Google was using 1.5 million gallons of water per day, as much as 40% of the city's entire consumption. But even that figure is misleading.
The biggest part of the water footprint of a data center is not inside the data center itself. It's indirect water consumption due to the electricity that is generated for the data center. That's the part that these tech companies don't disclose. But if you're only talking about what's going on site, you're really missing the lion's share of the impact.
This is exactly what farmers and residents are so worried about on the New Mexico-Texas border.
When we found out that the data center was moving in, we understood that we were going to lose water.
Veronica Carbajal is a community organizer and attorney who was born and raised in El Paso.
So that's the Meta data center construction site over there. They broke ground October of 2025.
Big tech companies are flocking to the Southwest for cheap land, tax breaks, and power, and see water scarcity as a solvable problem.
This facility will be a very low water user. In fact,
also another thing that came to mind as well is this movie called Eagle Eye. It's pretty much like a tool that can practically locate anyone anywhere in the world, kind of like this. But the infrastructure is already here. If you think about Palantir, as well as Elon Musk's satellite link internet thing, as well that's going on. All of that is the infrastructure that will allow Esau Edom, this B system later in the EU, which will be used in order to oversee those who take that chip implant. So the reason why they're speeding up with these AI data centers is, again, storage and processing of, well, you could say billions of people, of whom take that chip implant.
we have a closed loop system that basically just recycles the same.
But yeah, the movie's called Eagle Eye. It could be on Netflix. I don't know. I think they're about to remove it for the UK version. But it could be on Netflix on another version if you use VPN there.
Water scarcity as a solvable problem.
This facility will be a very low water user. In fact, we have a closed loop system that basically just recycles the same water over and over again as a cooling technology.
In 2025, 20% of El Paso's water use was just used to cool power plants on the local grid, and demand is only set to increase as more data centers come online. But at full build-out,
very low water user. In fact, we have a closed loop system that basically just recycles the same water over and over again as a cooling technology.
In 2025, 20% of El Paso's water use was just used to cool power plants on the local grid, and demand is only set to increase as more data centers come online. But at full build-out, Meta's new data center could account for up to 43% of El Paso Electric's peak load.
One new consumer, Meta, wants to use 1,000 megawatts. That's going to explode the need for water.
I met up with El Paso Water CEO John Ballou, who is adamant that the concerns over Meta's water use are overblown.
Meta coming in is really a drop in the bucket. It adds 0.4% to the overall water consumption. So it's not a big deal. We have plans in place. We have a sustainable supply of water.
We've asked them time and again why they keep speaking out of both sides of their mouth. To large water users like Meta, they're saying, don't worry, we have plenty of water. And then to residents, they say, we have to raise your rates because we don't have water.
In fact, it's the 11th year in a row that El Paso Water has imposed rate hikes on residents, with a double-digit rate increase in 20.
The thing is, if Esau really cared about, let's say if you had any inkling of righteousness within it, which obviously is it goes against the scripts, because of course he is the wicked. He is that wicked vessel, vessels committed to dishonor. Thing is, if he had any reasoning, he would think, okay, hold on. We gotta try and filter some water from the ocean that's in abundance, and then from that ocean. Now, of course, I'm just speaking in the simplicity of my words here. Of course, it will require certain studying to know how to do that. But I do know, of course, there will be some kind of a filtration system that he could create and then deliver that filtered water, to be used for these AI data centers. Well, of course, again, as you read in the scriptures, John 10:10, he cometh but to steal, kill, and destroy. That's his nature. So he's not gonna be like Jacob, who would show some compassion, on their neighbor and say, all right, let's do it in a manner which wouldn't harm the people. But again, this is the result of the wicked being in rulership. There ain't no mercy on the people.
26. At a city council meeting this past June, fed up residents demanded the city of El Paso cancel its deal with Meta.
The most violent act of this deal is the sale of water. In a desert region facing climate collapse, the oligarchy has decided that water is a commodity to be sold to a data center for profit.
But the city council voted 5-3 to keep the deal.
With the numbers being as large as they are, we might find that a lot more people would start protesting if they figure out just how big of an impact these data centers are having.
Alex DeVries Gao has written numerous peer-reviewed studies on data center water usage.
In my research, I found that on average, the water that is consumed to generate the power that's ultimately used by data centers is 10 times higher than the water that's actually consumed inside the data centers themselves. But
all right, so that means the water being used to generate the electricity. I'm gonna have to rewind that. Hold on, because he's making a solid point there.
Studies on data center water usage.
In my research, I found that on average, the water that is consumed to generate the power that's ultimately used by data centers.
All right, so that means the water to generate the electricity is greater than the water that's used to actually cool the computer systems within those data centers. So that's the part that not many people realize. People think that it's just for the cooling, but the part that he just mentioned is not what is being exposed here. Well, it's being exposed right now through this video, but it's not something that's typically known. The water used to generate electricity is way higher.
Is 10 times higher than the water that's actually consumed inside the data centers themselves, but they generally don't report on it. Only Meta provides this number, and in their case, their indirect water footprint is 24 times larger than what they consume inside the data centers itself.
The numbers are shocking, and it's unclear if local leaders making the decisions are even aware of them. So we're at a community meeting being held by a city councilwoman. We reached...
Yeah, that's really the part of the video. You have to move on to the next one, but let me get this... Let me get a few precepts, and then we'll see. This is Romans 9 and verse 21. Hath not the potter, which is the Most High Yahweh, hath not the potter power over the clay, which is us here on earth, formed of these terrestrial bodies, of the same lump, to make one vessel unto honor? That's talking about Jacob, Israel, Israelites, these so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native American Indians, as well as speckled bird out there. Again, referring to Jeremiah 12 and 9, which is a person he looks like a heathen on the outside, but is actually an Israelite by bloodline on their father's side. So yeah, vessels of one vessel unto honor, Israelites, and on another unto dishonor, referring to Esau, Edom. Now verse 22, what if the Most High, willing to show his wrath and to make his power known, endured with much long suffering the vessels of wrath fitted to destruction? So even the Most High was going through long suffering because of the fact that pretty much it's his will that's paying out at the end of the day. It's Yahweh's will that's paying out. But of course, sticking to the script by his words, Esau's got to play out his portion in his kingdom prior to his downfall. That's why it's fitted for destruction, and his latter end will be destruction, considering all the evil deeds that's going on right now. No consideration whatsoever for the land, nor any consideration for, again, the Latin tribe over there, and I think the Mexico Texas border, whatever. I think it says southern Mexico Texas border, around that region where. Of course, they're into the agriculture, of course, and if they're consuming that much water there, that means there wouldn't be enough water for the farmers, which, of course, the farmers are the ones who are the producers of food there as well, and water is essential. It's essential for life. You know, as Ecclesiasticus 29 and verse. In fact, I'll just get it. So again, because I've been bringing out this one lately, where Ecclesiasticus 29 and 21, the chief thing for life is water. That's how it says the first thing is water, and bread, and clothing, and a house to cover shame. So yeah, key part. It says the first thing they said water, and you know, as they say, the body is about 75% water. So again, Esau's about to do a whole heap of wickedness, man. So again, you know, can use your wisdom, of course. Those of us in the UK facing these hosepipe bans, you know, use your discernment. If you get a few buckets, you know, do what you can. But again, at the end of the day, you know, whilst we're living in this system as well, Yahweh Shem Shai will provide for us. Because you also got to remember this as well. You know, when we left Egypt, you know, he provided us food. He provided us manna, of course, bread. But the things, we still had to cook the bread. So, which means the Most High still requires us to work as well. So there ain't nothing wrong with you gathering things here and there, especially when He's giving you the foresight to know what's about to happen. Let the ones in ignorance, of course, be in ignorance. The only thing about us is that we're not attached to these physical items or these forms of preparation, one could say. Because we know at the end of the day, these are temporal things. They'll run out eventually. So again, that's why your faith has to be rooted in Yahweh Shem Shai. You know, you're aware of what's about to happen. Yeah, you put things here and there. But at the end of the day, just remember, when it runs out, rely on Yahweh. Well, you have to rely on Yahweh Shem Shai either way. But don't forget that. You know, don't be attached to it. Hope you understand what I mean. But yeah, the chief thing for life is water and bread and clothing and a house to cover shame, man. So yeah, we're entering multiple crisis points. I don't know if you call it crises. No, not crises. Crises, however you say it. But multiple crises. You got the water crisis. We one relating to pestilence. You know, you got the microplastics, that's one thing as well. There's multiple things going on, man. But of course, all of this will then be combined maybe with a black swan, you know, major event to just, to pretty much rapid fire Esau's agenda into the MOTB. Right, let's get back to the other video. This one probably more of a private journalist. You know, there's a lot of people who expose this stuff, man. You know, they do their private research and they put the information out there. You know, and YouTube, of course, is with its waning freedom to say what you want. Of course, in certain places you can't really do that, but nevertheless, you know, the internet is no longer that Wild West as it was in the early 2000s. Anyway, so let's continue.
Britain is burning. Our rivers are running dry, our reservoirs are depleting, and farmers across the country are watching crops die in their fields. And millions of us are being told to turn off hose pipes, to take shorter showers, and just to use less water. But there's a massive contradiction here that just doesn't add up. Britain is notoriously wet. We are obsessed with rain in this country. So how on earth did we end up here? Is this purely down to climate change? Is it billions of litres leaking out of aging pipes? Is it sheer political failure to build basic infrastructure? Or have we systemically been dismantling the very natural landscapes which we all depend upon? This is my favourite tree, and look at the leaves. So right now, Britain is in the grips of a pretty severe drought. We've just had the driest July on record, and it's affecting almost every aspect of our lives. And behind all of these headlines, which we're really seeing on this drought, is a fundamental breakdown in how we manage water in this country. Now, while we're living through one of the hottest and driest summers we've had here in the UK, we've also just lived through one of the wettest winters we've ever had. So what does that tell you? Well, firstly, it tells you that our climate is in these violent extremes where we're experiencing these deluges during the winter, but also these long droughts during the summer. But it also tells you that we are catastrophically failing to retain water in our landscapes. Rain is treated as this unwanted byproduct which we need to flush off the land as fast as possible into our rivers and off out to sea. So to understand why this is happening, we have to talk about the skies above us. We have to talk about the climate. So the UK's weather is driven by the Atlantic jet stream, but as global temperatures rise, that jet stream is becoming unstable and a little bit sticky. Instead of a steady mix of, rain and sunshine passing through, we're getting stuck in these weather systems. When a high pressure heat dome settles over the UK in summer, it sits here for weeks, baking the ground. And when low pressure winter storms arrive, they drop months of rain in a single afternoon. And what happens is once the drought finally does stop, and it does rain, and we're really hoping it does rain soon, because the ground is so dry and it's so rock hard, that water, it can't seep into it. Just think of a dry sponge. When you initially run it under the tap, the water kind of runs off. And that's a problem, because if the water can't absorb in, it hits it in this deluge and then it rushes off. That is desertification, and that's happening here in the UK. Now, it is far more complex than that, and there is an awful lot to say about the climate, but just we need to understand that these weather extremes create this vicious cycle. The real reason Britain is so vulnerable to drought isn't just that the climate is changing, it's that we've deliberately stripped away our natural defences. Historically, Britain's peatlands and wetlands acted as massive natural sponges. They soaked up winter rain, stored billions of litres of water, and slowly released it during our dry summer months. And instead, what we've done, we have totally degraded all of our peat bogs and our uplands. We have, dug in, thousands of miles of drainage ditches, and our river systems, well, we've canalised them, we've straightened them, and we've absolutely destroyed the floodplains either side of them. And in doing all of this, we've destroyed our landscape's natural capacity to hold water, to hold billions of litres of water. I mean, is it trillions? I don't know. I know it's a lot though. So that's the messed up natural systems. We now need to talk about the messed up artificial systems, the human systems which we've built. Water companies. Every single day in Britain, we're losing 3 billion litres of drinking water due to neglected pipes. It's just seeping and leaking out. That's enough to meet the basic needs of millions of people across the country. And, it doesn't stop there with the water companies. I mean, how long do we have for this video? Over the past 30 years since the water companies have been privatised, we haven't seen a single large-scale reservoir built here in Britain. There has been insufficient and very little investment from water companies into the infrastructure to provide Britain with the basic water needs, with sewage needs. I mean, we haven't even mentioned that the sewer overflow systems are pumping out sewage into our rivers. And that's because of a lack of investment from water companies who have been paying themselves in dividends and profits like crazy. But it does go on, because now we're seeing AI data centers being proposed and built across the country because they need to keep thousands of supercomputers from overheating, drinking millions of litres of water every single day. Please do subscribe to Leave Curious, because I'm going to be making more in-depth videos about these topics.
Yeah, man, you saw, again, children of fools, man. Children of fools. Well, it don't really help the fact that he has a wicked nature as well, but children of fools. He ain't gonna. Well, he doesn't keep the land Sabbath. In fact, we'll get that right now. He doesn't keep the land Sabbath. He doesn't let the water. He doesn't maintain the land well. That's pretty much what he's doing. He's not doing a good job with maintaining the potency of the land. In terms of, and of course, when it gets dry, there's not as much nutrients as it should have when it is moist with when there is moist soil. When the soil is moist, of course, with water, there would be more nutrients in that compared to dry soil, which again would aid in more crops being grown. So he's doing a sloppy job. This is Leviticus 25:4. But in the 7th year shall be a Sabbath of rest unto the land, a Sabbath for the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. Thou shalt neither sow thy field nor prune thy vineyard, That which groweth of its own accord of thy harvest thou shalt not reap, neither gather the grapes of thy vine undressed, for it is the year of rest unto the land. You gotta let the land rest. You gotta let it breathe. Esau has not done that. With him extracting all the nutrients and not letting the land rest, of course there's going to be some depletion as well. And again, his lack of understanding, or not, I say lack of understanding, but the Most High has given him knowledge in terms of agriculture, but he ain't using it to sustain the land, and of course not just to sustain the land, but to sustain the people as well. Because everything's connected, man. Everything is connected here on earth. We need the earth, in these bodies, and of course the earth also needs us in order to maintain it too, in a proper manner. Hence why the whole creation groaneth for the men of Yahweh Shem Yahushua. Let me get that. Actually, it says creation, isn't it? Creation groaneth. She should be here. Oh yeah, that's that. Right, Romans 8:19, for the earnest expectation of the creature, the earth, waiteth for the manifestation of the sons of the Most High. To make clear the manifestation of the sons of the Most High. So when we're in rulership, it'll be clear. So verse 20, for the creature was made subject to vanity, not willingly, but by reason of him who hath subjected the same hope. Of course, it all depends on who's ruling. Now it says, because the creature itself also shall be delivered from the bondage of corruption into the glorious liberty of the children of the Most High. So of course, when Esau's kingdom goes down and Yahushua's kingdom is established, the creature itself, that of the earth, will be in its full power again. It's gonna grow bigger. It's gonna be more nourished. It's gonna glow. Now, verse 22, for we know that the whole creation groaneth and travaileth in pain together until now. Now, let me put some perspective on this as well, because you gotta be able to think about these things. But I'm just trying to stay quiet so that I can get my words right as well. It's the soil, of course, like the grass as well, can be likened as your hair. If you of course have dry hair, you don't have much nutrients. Of course, it's not really a good environment for your hair to grow. That's why everyone, especially women, but not just women as well, men also have their routines. Personally, at times, and I say at times because of course you don't want to overdo it. Kind of like if you pour too much water in the soil, it's not good for the plant to grow. But of course, it has to be just the right amount. So you use discernment. It's the same way. If you use typically, of course, you spray some water on your hair, let it dry a little bit. Lock in the moisture with some oils. Of course, the women understand this way more. But yeah, lock it in with some oils. Then, of course, you'll be nourishing your hair. Kind of like the earth. So that's something to bring some perspective. But of course, not doing that, make your hair kind of chappy as well. But it depends though. It depends on the person. If your hair naturally produces oils, then you wouldn't have to do that as much. But of course, if you don't really produce too much oils, which can be affected by how much you wash your hair as well, then of course you will have a dry scalp. So again, the way our hair grows and how we maintain it as well, with moisture, locking it in with coconut oil or whatever, products you may use to lock in the moisture. As I said, women are specialists in that. But for me personally, I just use coconut oil. But yeah, how you treat your hair is also like a mirror to how we treat the earth as well, how we should treat the earth. You gotta be able to, of course, we ain't gonna add oils to the soil, but the point is the minerals and the nutrients, as the earth breathes, of course, you'll be able to generate that stuff as well. You're allowed to grow, you're allowed to repair, self-healing as the Most High programmed the earth. And it has to have those right conditions. That's why in Leviticus 25 and verse 4 to 5, it talks about a land Sabbath, a whole year, where you let the land rest. Hence why really in Israel, it would be ideal having multiple lands. It's like, okay, you know, you let one rest and then you use the other so that you can still feed your family and feed yourself. So just bringing some perspective here, Akim and Akwath, you know, for the few sisters that do watch. But yeah, that's just some perspective. You know, how you treat your hair is similar to how you should treat the earth as well, especially if you have good care for your hair. Anyways, man, so children of fools. Let me end it there. So let me get this. Children of fools with a wicked nature. Did I even finish this? Hold on, before I get that. Yeah, verse 22. So Romans 8 and 22. For we know that the whole creation groaneth and travaileth in pain together until now, because it's waiting for us to be in rulership, the sons of Yahweh Bashim Yahushua. Now let's get this. And sometimes as well, you know, with your hair, you gotta let it relax, man. You gotta you gotta let it relax. This goes also for the woman as well. It's like, oh, how's a guy telling a woman about this? Obviously, if you're a woman, you know that certain periods of time, you know, you gotta let your hair relax from all these chemicals. You gotta let your scalp breathe, even with locking in the coconut oil as well. You can't really do that too much. You gotta let your hair breathe and relax. Let your scalp relax. So it's the same thing. That's like giving your head, giving your head a Sabbath. You know, just to get your minds rolling and to understand. You let your scalp rest. You let the land rest also. So that's just to get some perspective. Now, Daniel 4:17. This matter is by the decree of the watchers and the demand by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High, Yahweh Shem Yahushua, which of course the Most High is Yahweh, and of course his son is Yahushua, just to make that clear. The Most High ruleth, the Most High Yahweh ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will, and setteth up over it the basest of men. Now, you may be wondering, which most of you already know anyways, who is this base man of whom the Most High has allowed to rule for this time? That's Esau Edom. That's Esau Edom right there. So anyways, let me get to the point. So Job 30 and 8, it says, they were children of fools, these Edomites. Yea, children of base men, they're the real cavemen. You know, not everyone flipping came from that. Edomites are the real cavemen. Well, of course, again, be careful because you got speckled birds out there. So not every speckled bird is goes from caveman roots. But certain Edomites, they, again, so-called white people, not every so-called white person is an Edomite. Some are Israelites. But of course, you got to look at their father seed line. But yeah, it says they were viler than the earth. So, of course, if you have a fool ruling the planet, wouldn't you think that this, what he'll do, his decrees will be foolish as well? I mean, it's self-explanatory. So I'll leave it at that. You know, we had the video on America and the AI data centers there. And of course, how the water usage is impacting the farmers, as well as the AI data centers being planned to be put over here in the UK, as well as Esau not maintaining the land as well. Yaratazar could put the videos in the description. So, Shalom, Yahweh Shem Yahushua, Barakatha. And obviously, I've mentioned this here and there. When we say Shalom, that means peace. Really, that means everlasting peace. And then Shalom, meaning peace. And when I say Yahweh Bahashem Yahushua, Yahweh is the name of the Most High. The world in ignorance calls him God, but he has a name. It's Yahweh. It's not Allah. It's not Jehovah, or it's not any of that other stuff that doesn't even correlate with the ancient Hebrew alphabet. It's Yahweh. Even the Tetragrammaton as well, which is I'm not even going to get that's really is a topic for another day if I go too deep. But the point is, his name is Yahweh, which means he exists. You know, the existing one. He is, he exists, or he is to be. And then when we say Bahashem, it means in the name. So Ba means in, Ha means the, Sham means name, S-H-A-M. And then when we say Yahweh Shai, we're saying he saves, he delivers. That's what his name means. And who's he going to deliver? The remnant of Israel. Isaiah 10 and 20, Revelation 14, the 144,000, and Zechariah 13 and verse 9, about the 1/3 of Israel over there in America. So anyways, Yahweh Bahashem Yahushua Barakatham. Barak means blessed, Atham means you, but plural as a group. So that's there. In due time, as I'm also studying Ancient Hebrew, I could do some Ancient Hebrew lessons, but again, in time. So yeah, Shalom, Yahweh Bahashem Yahushua Barakatham.